It was late September, the kind of cold where the air smells like damp leaves and coming rain, carrying that unmistakable promise of autumn storms. Jake and I had always been explorers. Since we were kids, we'd hike through forests, climb crumbling hills, and wander off trails, just to see where they'd lead. The more forgotten the place, the better. We didn't just hike, we searched for the places no one talked about, where nature had reclaimed everything. Jake loved the freedom of it. No noise, no people, just us, he always said. For me, it was the quiet that mattered. Nature didn't lie. The wind in the trees, the dirt under your feet, it all felt more real than anything back in town. We'd heard rumors. A lake, hidden deep in the woods, left behind when an old dam had flooded the valley. No one went there. It wasn't on maps anymore. Locals didn't talk about it. They didn't need to. The trail was overgrown, barely visible, winding endlessly through towering pines. Every step felt heavier, like the forest didn't want us there. The silence deepened the further we walked. No bird song, no wind. But when we finally broke through the tree line, there it was. The lake. The water was too still, like a sheet of glass, reflecting the dark clouds overhead. The trees surrounding it leaned in, their twisted reflections stretching across the surface. The air felt thicker here, colder. And there, near the shoreline, we saw it. A bicycle. Jake squinted, shielding his eyes. What the hell is that doing there? I didn't answer. My stomach twisted. Something about it felt wrong. The bicycle wasn't rusted, like you'd expect after years in the water. It was old, sure. The paint chipped, the metal frame dulled, but not corroded. It stood there, perfectly upright, half submerged. Its pink color, though faded, was still visible. A child's bicycle. Pink. Small. The tassels on the handlebars fluttered slightly, though there was no breeze. One training wheel was missing. The other hung crookedly, barely clinging to the frame. That doesn't make sense, I muttered. Jake stepped closer. It should be underwater. How's it even standing up like that? The ground must drop off fast from the shore. But that wasn't it. I could feel it. Something else was keeping it there. Jake glanced at me, grinning, trying to break the tension. Creepy-ass imagery, dude, like something out of a horror movie. I didn't smile. It wasn't just creepy. It felt like the bicycle was waiting. Jake picked up a rock and tossed it toward the bike. It struck the water with a dull plop. We both watched. The ripples spread too slowly. The water didn't ripple like normal lake water. The rings moved outward, thickly sluggish, like syrup. And the bicycle didn't move, not an inch. Jake let out a nervous laugh. Okay, that's weird. It should have tipped, right? I nodded slowly. Yeah, it should have. But my eyes were fixed on the water. It wasn't just the ripples. The bicycle's reflection didn't ripple at all. Jake didn't notice. He was pacing along the edge, searching for a path closer to the water line. Maybe it's stuck on something, like the ground's just shallow there? Or maybe it's meant to be there. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Jake turned. Meant to be there? Dude, what does that even mean? I didn't know. The words had just come out. But they felt true. The bike wasn't just sitting there. It had been placed. Jake gestured to the woods behind us. Come on, who's gonna drag a kid's bike all the way out here just to set it in the water? Makes no sense. I didn't answer. My gaze drifted back to the bicycle, the way it stood, as if waiting, as if it had been there for a very long time. Jake tossed another rock. It struck closer this time. The ripples spread again, too slow, too thick. The bicycle stood firm. Jake's smile faltered. We stood there in silence for a long time, just watching. The lake reflecting the gray sky. The bicycle, still, waiting. Jake rubbed the back of his neck. This place gives me the creeps. Me too. But I couldn't look away. The bicycle shouldn't have been there, but it was. We should have left, but we didn't. Instead, we stepped closer, our shoes sinking into the soft, blackened mud near the shore. The mud clung to our shoes like fingers, sucking with every step. The air smelled stronger here, damp, earthy, almost rotting. Jake pulled out his phone. I swear to God, if I Google this lake and find some creepy missing person case. He stopped, his face drained of color. What? I asked, my throat suddenly dry. Slowly, he turned the screen toward me. A news article from 10 years ago. Girl 7 vanishes from campground. Pink bicycle left behind. My heart stopped. The article had a picture. A stocky little girl, beaming, her teeth too big for her mouth. She stood next to a pink bike, the same pink bike in the water. I licked my lips, my throat burning. Jake, we need to. A splash. We froze. The lake was still again, silent. But something had moved. Jake's hand trembled as he lifted his phone, ready to take a picture. And then, the water shifted. Not a ripple, not a wave. It was like something beneath had changed positions, like something was watching us now. I turned to run. Then I saw it. The dead eyes below in the reflection of the water, just beneath the surface. Two wide, unblinking eyes stared up at me. Not fish eyes, not animal eyes. A little girl's dead eyes. I gasped, stumbling back, my chest locking up with terror. Jesus Christ! The water rippled again, her face distorting, but the eyes never moved. They followed me. Jake swore, his flashlight beam darting over the lake. Dude, what the hell is that? Then, a small pale hand reached up, right next to the bicycle. I choked on my breath. No, no, no. The fingers were too thin, the skin wrinkled and swollen from too much time in the water. It just hovered there, reaching for the bike. Then, it started pulling. The bicycle shifted, tilting downward, as if something beneath was dragging it under. And for the first time since we got there, the bike moved. Jake grabbed my arm. Run. The water split apart as the bike was pulled under completely, disappearing into the dark abyss below. But before it vanished, something else surfaced. A face. A small, bloated face with long, tangled hair, its pale mouth opening too wide, like it had been screaming for years, but no one ever heard. Jake screamed, "Run! Run! Now!" He yanked me back, but I slipped. My foot plunged into the water, cold, icy, grasping. A hand brushed against my ankle. "No!" I screamed, kicking wildly. "Jake! Help!" Jake lunged, grabbing my wrist, pulling hard. The water splashed, a pale figure lunging from beneath. Fingers outstretched, Jake pulled me free just as the hand closed on empty air. We ran like hell. Branches scratched at our faces, shrubs tore at our clothes. The woods seemed endless, the path gone. Behind us, splashes, footsteps wet, heavy, relentless. "Don't look back," Jake screamed, but I did. For a split second, I saw her, standing in the water, her pale, bloated face half submerged. Her eyes locked onto mine, and her lips moved. Just 2 words. "Come back." We broke through the trees, collapsing on the gravel road, panting, shaking, alive. The lake behind us was still, too still. The bicycle was gone, but her eyes, they were still there, waiting, watching, begging us to come back. Neither of us spoke on the drive home. The car was silent, except for the sound of tires humming against the cracked road. Jake gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. I stared out of the window, watching the trees blur past, but my mind was still back at the lake, back at the bicycle, back at her. When I got home, I did something stupid. I searched her name. It didn't take long. The news articles were still there, buried deep in archives, like a story no one wanted to remember. Local girl 7 vanishes from campground, pink bicycle left behind. The picture from before, her, smiling, standing next to that same pink bike with the crooked training wheel. But there were more details this time. Details the original article hadn't mentioned. The search lasted weeks. Rescue teams combed the surrounding forest. Divers searched the lake, but there was no sign of her body. The only thing left behind was her bicycle, found standing upright near the lake's shore. A year later, the authorities drained the lake. They found nothing. Not the girl, not the bicycle. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. She wasn't there. And yet, Jake and I had seen it. Her bicycle, her face, the wide, dead eyes staring at us from beneath the water, the pale hand reaching for me. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands trembling. No, this isn't real. But deep down, I knew it was. I haven't been back. I won't go back. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about the water, about her face, about the pale fingers reaching for me from the depths. And once, just once, I woke up to the sound of wet footsteps outside my bedroom window. The sound was soft at first, barely there. A slow, squishing noise, like bare feet pressing into soaked ground. My bedroom was on the second floor. I told myself I imagined it. But then I heard it again. Closer. Squish. Squish. My breath caught in my throat. I froze, unable to move. The room was cold, the air heavy, as if I were back at the lake again. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but behind them I saw it. A shadow. Small. Still. Standing just outside the glass. The sound stopped. Silence. I lay there, paralyzed. Did I imagine this? Minutes passed, maybe hours, and then tap, tap, tap. My heart stopped. 3 slow, wet taps against the window pane. I squeezed my eyes shut. No, this isn't real. But I heard it again. Tap, 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 this time closer, right beside my ear. I shot up, yanking the curtains open. Nothing. The street outside was empty. No footprints. No sign of anyone. But on the glass, there were wet handprints. Small. Just the size of a child's. Sometimes I still hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Like she's still waiting. Waiting for me to come back. And I know one thing for sure. She never left the water, but she's not stuck there anymore. The bicycle is gone. She found her way out. And now, she's looking for something else. Someone else.